WCB Podcast, your source for all things Chicago Blackhawks and everything hockey. With your host, Jarom and Tanner. Let's do it. Jarom and Tanner.
All right, welcome to a monster edition of the WCB Podcast. As always, it is Jarom. We are here. It is episode 200. This episode is brought to you by Whiskey in the Wild. Whiskey in the Wild is a brand new whiskey company co-founded by Chicago Blackhawks legend Jeremy Roenick, who, if you haven't told already, is on the show today. He is the monster guest that we got for episode 200. This is a bucket list interview that I have been trying for, and I'm so glad I was able to finally get it. And JR did not disappoint. Everything you hear about him and the stories, and it doesn't even come close to how awesome this guy is. He spent a good solid 50 minutes with us, even talked with us for a little bit after hockey, talk about hockey afterwards. What's really funny about this interview is that he actually broke the Evander Kane wrist injury to us. He was watching the Oilers game while we were recording, and he was like, oh, there's Kane. Kane got hurt. So we found out via Jeremy Roenick, which is not something that a lot of people can say. Lots of great talk. I got myself a lot of Amante talking, which was something I really wanted to hear, considering they grew up together. Just talk about coming up playing Chicago Blackhawks hockey and throughout his career and the game today. It was just awesome interview, and I can't wait to get to it. So I won't waste too much time here. Couple little housekeeping notes here. You may have noticed on social media and by the intro of the song, we've gone through a little bit of a rebrand. Again, I know I rebrand a lot, but it was time. We felt that it was the right opportunity to go ahead and make a change that we felt was going to be good for the show, and it's going to be more permanent. We're retiring the Windy City Benders podcast. So going forward, we are just WCB Podcast. Tanner doesn't live in Chicago anymore. He doesn't even live in Illinois anymore. I don't know how much longer I'll be in Chicago. That's a lot conversation for another day. But so just Windy City didn't really fit the full name anymore. We'll always have that connection to the city. Obviously, we're Chicago Blackhawks podcast, so there's a connection there. We'll always have the Chicago Stars, our logo, colors, and all that kind of stuff, all that good stuff. But yeah, so going forward, WCB Podcast. Here to stay. Let's go. Before we get into the actual episode here, I just wanted to take a second and to thank all of you for the continued support and coming back each and every week, sticking with us when we take some time off. I know I had to take a lot of time off throughout the years for health reasons and my dad passing and all that kind of stuff, but came back. You guys stayed with us, and we are better than ever, and it is so awesome to see where the show's going, and that right now it's really the sky's the limit. Cannot wait to see what's next. One more thing before we get into the interview with Jeremy Roenick. Like I said, this is brought to you by Whiskey in the Wild. Roenick asked me to tell you all about his latest adventure, Whiskey in the Wild. On the rock, on the rocks, or a la mode, this premium crafted Canadian whiskey blended with extracts of cocoa, vanilla, blackberry, and wild black elderberry is made in the spirit of adventure. Raise your flask, take a sip at the summit to great spirits and something smooth and something wild. And I actually got in some of both bottles today. Been drinking the original flavor, and it is delicious. And in the episode, he talks about it, how he was trying to create a spirit for, guys and girls alike that are going to enjoy it. And I got to say, I think they nailed it. Super cool packaging. He shows it to you, but I got it here as well. Here's the original. Super cool with the flask. He explains all this in the episode. You got the original. Then you got with the orange twist, and he was awesome enough to send me over a signed flask for that, so I could add it up into the collection with my Belfort one. So great whiskey. Right now it's online only, but let's let Jeremy talk about it. So let's get right into the episode, and ladies and gentlemen, here's Jeremy Roenick. All right, so we are joined today by a very special guest. He was drafted 8th overall in the 1988 draft by the Chicago Blackhawks. He was a 9-time All-Star, had a pretty decent career, putting up 513 career goals, 703 career assists, 1,216 career points. He is one of the all-time greatest American-born players who's third all-time in World Juniors points for Team USA. Please welcome to the show, Jeremy Roenick. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, you got it. It's good to be with you guys. Appreciate it. How are we doing tonight? I love the background. You got some really good memorabilia on there. See my signed picture. I know that. I think I was playing in Vancouver behind over your right shoulder.
Over the right shoulder is actually so that's actually
no.
Stieg Amante.
Oh, it looks like in the picture right there. It looks like that's I have a picture that looks exactly like that, which is kind of crazy.
That is actually, but the Coyotes jersey is actually a game worn from you. We my dad won it in a raffle for Joliet Jaguar hockey, so it's always been on.
Very, very sick. Awesome. I love it. And you're representing my my line mate. I call him. I've always called him my soulmate of line mates. It's Tony Monti. Yeah.
Hey, perfect.
So you know what? Let's just get right into that, because you know what, we were going to ask you a question like, who was your favorite teammate and why was it Tony Monti?
Well, Tony was definitely one of my favorites, and I mean, how could you not when you grow up with somebody from, she is literally 13 years old, and we even played against each other before we were 13, and then pretty much dominate the high school ranks in Boston. Him and I were on the same line at Thayer Academy, and pretty much there wasn't a school that could stop the two of us. And then being able to play with each other in Chicago for 4 years was pretty unbelievable. Let alone to get reunited with him in Philly in 2004 for the stretch run, which we probably should have won a cup that year. And it was really ironic how that kind of came about, because I got traded for Alex Jamnoff in 1996, and in 2004, in the third round of that series, the third round of that playoff run, I had me in the middle, Jamnoff in the middle, Tony on the right, and me on the left. Really fun, cool stuff, right?
What was, so growing up playing with Tony, what was like your reaction when he got traded to Chicago from the Rangers? Like,
I was ecstatic. I was ecstatic. I had gotten the guy that I knew better than playing with anybody else, right? I could play blindfolded with Tony and literally know exactly where he was. We gelled so well. It was almost like, you guys have seen the Sedin twins and how well they played together. It was very similar how Tony and I played together. It's almost like we had this mental telepathy of talking to each other but not saying anything. So I was really excited. It did have its bad issues. Stéphane Matteau got traded for Tony, and Steph was my roommate in junior and was my one of my very, very closest friends on the Chicago Blackhawks, and literally still to this day is one of my best friends in the world. So it's I kind of lost a great friend, but gained, like I told you, the soulmate of line mates, Tony Monti.
Just bittersweet moment there.
Yeah, exactly.
So just going back to like kind of when you were starting playing hockey, like at what point did you think that like going pro was just like a super hard reality for you?
Well, I always dominated every league that I played in since I started, as a little kid. But, when you get up to high school level, you start playing in one of the best leagues in the country in terms of the high school ranks, and you dominate them like I did. And then you start seeing the scouts come, and the college scouts and the pro scouts come to every single game. Literally, you can see them standing up at the top of the rafters with their clipboards, just writing down stuff. And it's kind of hard to not think that you're going to be high on somebody's list. The only problem was we're Americans, right? And in a vastly overpopulated Canadian sport, and European too. It wasn't the NHL's commonplace to draft 150-pound high school hockey players at 18 years old. So, you had to keep reality in mind. But, I got drafted 8th overall in 1988 and kind of shocked the world a little bit.
What was your initial reaction to hearing your name called by Chicago?
It was pretty unbelievable, to tell you the truth. I thought I was going to get drafted to the Quebec Nordiques. They had 2 picks in the first 5 picks. They had number 3 pick and number 5 pick. And number 3, they took a great defenseman in Curtis Decision. And then I thought for sure, with all the talk needing a forward and them really not doing so well at the time, I thought I was going to be done and going to Quebec, which for me wouldn't have been awful. But, as you've seen, Mario Lemieux refused to go to Quebec. Eric Lindros seemed to refuse it later on. It wasn't the greatest place for certain players. I would have been okay with it, but I do think the Quebec Nordiques and that number 5 pick in 1988 probably made one of the worst picks in NHL history, drafting a guy named Daniel Doré, who was a fighter, like a tough guy.
They picked up an enforcer at 5?
An enforcer. And
was
if you
he
look
even
up
projected to go that high?
No, not even close. And the eyes pretty much popped at that pick, and so I ended up going 3 more after that, which was pretty spectacular.
I mean, I think we're all pretty excited about that still too. It's definitely one of our favorite players to ever wear the sweater.
You get to go to an original 6 team. You get to go to a fantastic city. You go to an awesome sports city with great fans. Obviously, I didn't know how passionate the fans were till I got there, but fell in love with them immediately. And I tried to do everything I can to make sure that they fell in love with me too. And I think it was unfortunately cut short in 1996, but still, when I walk through Chicago, it is still it's an event. There's no question.
Definitely. So you talked about, coming in 18 years old, $150 wet, what was it like coming in as a rookie with the head coach of Mike Keenan? I mean, we hear all the stories about this guy being a hard ass and just not being really a player's coach a lot of the time. I mean, what was that like for you coming in, as a rookie?
Well, it was intimidating. There's no question about that. I mean, his reputation preceded him, but I really didn't care. My high school coach was a disciplinarian in its finest, as was my dad. So I really didn't mind tough coaches. I didn't mind being yelled at. I didn't mind being challenged. So, but I was more excited to have the opportunity to play in the National Hockey League, and I didn't look at Keenan as a deterrent. I looked at him as, hey, if he can make me better, that's great. And he really did make me better. It is because of Mike Keenan why I played the way that I played. Because when I was in high school and growing up, I was not a tough player. I was not a guy who ran around and played physical. I was one of those guys that whined and cried when he got hit. If I went down in the ice, I'd stay down a little extra longer. Just wasn't I wasn't that tough mentality type of player that I kind of turned into in Chicago. And that's because Keenan, in my second preseason game in Kalamazoo, literally grabbed me around the throat on the bench, grabbed me around the throat, pulled me backwards, and was literally spitting on my face in a full out yell that if I didn't finish my checks and I didn't start hitting people and playing a physical style of game, that I was not going to play for his team. And at 158 pounds at the time, playing against guys who looked like they should have been in prison and not on the hockey rink, it was very intimidating. But I found I was fast, so I used my speed as my velocity, and I just launched myself as a human torpedo, and literally found out that I could hit really hard. I could do some damage, and not only could I do damage, but the fans went nuts when I hit somebody hard, and I loved that because I loved giving fans a great experience. I like to look at. I wanted them to look at me and go, "Wow, that was awesome!" Whether it was a goal, an assist, a hit, or just doing something that is fun for the people and give them something to remember and appreciate. And that's just how I went about it. So that when it became part of my game.
When you're saying that, like, you kind of fed off of that like rush that you would get from just getting that hit and hearing the fans roar, is like where you got a little bit more of that fanfare and going like that, showing that personality a bit more, as like the fans reacted more to you. You got a little bit more out there for them.
Well, listen, I mean, just like in everything, right? It's in everything. There are positives and negatives. You get great feedback on everything that you do. I love doing things for the fans, but I also loved winning, playing physical, being able to play defensive, being able to score goals, being able to be creative and make plays. I mean, I wanted to hurt people on the scoreboard, and I wanted to physically hurt them. I wanted them to feel pain, because pain is one of the biggest deterrents of getting somebody to compete. Sometimes that pain threshold, you'll push them out of a game. So I was able to have defensemen fear going back into the corner to get a puck, knowing that their face was going to hit the glass and was going to hit it hard. And then the fans reacted to it. So not only did I have that effect on the ice, but I had that effect off the ice, which made the building more electric. And there's just so many different positives. And when I went into an opposing rink, I did the same thing, and the fans hated me, and they screamed at me, and they hated me because of all the different things that I would try to do in the course of a hockey game. And, that led to having fans that just couldn't stand me, because whether I unleashed a lot of punishment on them, or it was, my mouth that made sure that they knew it afterwards. One of the two. It was, I definitely made an impression, whether it was negative or positive. You can't say not too many people didn't know who I was at the time.
Oh, definitely. Talk about the roar of the fans and all that. And you got to play in two iconic stadiums in Chicago. Was there anything quite like, was the United Center able to replicate like the roar that you would get from the fans in the Chicago stadium?
No, that was that just, when you stand there for the anthem, it's pretty unbelievable to listen to the anthem going, Wayne Messmer singing, and at times not even being able to hear the words coming out of his voice, out of his mouth. So, Keenan wanted to have a very difficult team to play against, and wanted teams to fear coming into Chicago Stadium. Walking up those stairs, there are 26 steps from the basement up to the ice level, and the closer that you got to the ice, to the arena, the louder it got. And players coming up on the other side, we came up all jived up and ready and energized. The other team came up going, holy shit, we're in trouble. Right. And it's almost like we had a goal advantage before the game even started.
Would you say it was kind of like almost Roman Coliseum, like for the opposing fans? Like, you guys are the Tigers and they're coming into your domain.
Yeah, pretty much. It was definitely an overwhelming experience, and a very difficult place to play. The fans were into it. I mean, the old Chicago Stadium, literally the upper deck was right over the arena. I mean, everybody was right on top of each other. You can hear what people were saying. You can hear what they were doing. And, there were probably sometimes more fights in the stands than there were on the ice at the time. And, it was then we moved from there into United Center, and literally you could have taken the old Chicago Stadium and lifted it up and put it inside the United Center. It would have fit. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the difference of the size of the buildings, and they tried to bring over the remember the roar, and at times, especially during their cup runs, those anthems were just massive. But there was a time after I got traded that you could have heard a pin drop during the anthem. Oh, yeah. Totally.
5,000 fan days. Oh, brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Cheap tickets though.
Yeah, cheap tickets. Well, just like everything, everything is an evolution, right? I tease. Obviously I don't mean it, but there is a little bit of validity to the fact that I say that the Hawks won in 2010, and I say, if they didn't trade me in 1996, they wouldn't have won in 2010. Because if you kind of look at it, right, even though that's a very bold statement, but every team has to build. They have to build a team. They have to go through a rebirth, and sometimes a rebirth and a rebuild takes a long time. Well, they traded me. They let go of Tony Monti. They let go of Chelly. Chelly left. Eddie left. So but it started with me in 1996. and it kind of lost a lot of luster. And then by 2001, there was nobody coming to the games. They were last place in the team. They were one of the worst teams in the league, and the fans did not like the team. They didn't like the owners. They liked the team, but they just didn't like how the team was being run. So they revolted. They didn't go. So by 2003, 2004, what happens? You're the worst team in the league. What's the benefit of that is you get the top picks. And when you get a guy like Jonathan Taves, they got him, third pick overall in 2004, 2004? It was 4, 5, 5. 5, it was Kane 6.
Kane was 8.
They're almost back to back.
Yeah, they were back to back years.
They're like
7. I think it was
3 and 1.
Yeah.
7 and 8.
You get, and then they won the lottery. They got really lucky with the next year with Kane, and because they were one of the worst teams in the league, they were able to get their generational players and Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane, and then everything changed. Then new regime took over in Chicago. You had they brought back the old Hawks with Chelly and Bobby Hall and Makita and Esposito and all those boys that came back to and they kind of gave the game back to the fans. They gave the team back to the fans, and people came back in droves, and that's why they won a cup in 2010, 2012, 2016, or 13, 16. That's a dynasty. The dynasty was built. But I like to say it was built because I got traded. I'm being selfish. Guys.
Hey, put his name on the cup too. There you go.
Not that much, but I always wonder I always wonder what my life would have been like if I stayed in Chicago my entire career. And as knowing how popular I still am in Chicago when I go back and how great they treat me, and it's one of my favorite places to go in the whole world. And I'll say that even with Philly. I mean, Philly, my fans in Philly are, I love Philly fans so much and what they've done for me and my relationship with them. I just wonder if I would have stayed longer in those cities, where I would be right now, in terms of, I probably definitely would be in the Hall of Fame. I for sure think that, but
yeah.
It would have been interesting. And by the way, don't get me wrong, I'm extremely happy here in San Diego. not associated with the National Hockey League. I'm very happy about that too.
I mean, weather's always nice. You got the beaches right there. It's not too bad.
I live a great life. I really do. Yeah. Stress free. I own businesses. I actually have a job for the first time in my life that I have to report to a boss, and I have goals. I have expectations. I have all these goals that I have to hit. I have to hit projections. I have expense accounts. It's kind of crazy, but I kind of like it. I really enjoy it because it's a different type of game for me and competitiveness, and I enjoy it.
So if you had to go back, say you were given like the do-over button and you had to pick one team to go back to extend your career with, who do you think you would end up going with?
Well, I mean, there's no question I wouldn't get traded in 1996 from the Hawks. I would do things a whole slew different in 96 and treat my contract negotiations a totally different way than I did. But besides that, I mean, agreeing to a trade from Philly in 2005 was a mistake too. So, but I had to. I did it for certain reasons. I did it for the sake of the Flyer fans, and I did it because it was involved one of the best players in the world, and that's Peter Forsberg. So, I think I did pretty much everything for the right reasons. Chicago was for the right reason, but the wrong way of doing it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, when you're saying that like Philly means so much to you and Chicago means so much to you, then how was just your experience throughout the whole like 2010 like Stanley Cup, just like watching that go down and just kind of also being on TV during that time too? I mean, when they finally raised the cup, like that moment of you on TV where you kind of like break a little bit is like still that like hits me hard too, and I think about that like somewhat every once in a while when like the final happens. I'm like, man, that was a crazy moment.
It was pretty surreal, to tell you the truth. I didn't expect that reaction at the time. I knew going into the final being on television, being at the games, knowing that I was going to be, the first person that was going to get asked every question because I played. Those are my two most prominent teams, right?
Yeah.
I always used to say, well, Chicago's my team in the West and Philly's my team in the East. That was always my out, right? Um, but in all seriousness, both of those teams have massive, massive, compartments of my heart, like massive. So during that, I was almost like, listen, I'm in a win-win, lose-lose. Like for me, one of the teams that I love is going to win. And I will tell you, to see that cup get raised above the head of a team that I battled for and tried to win that cup for, bled on and sweated on. I did it longer and better in Chicago than in Philly, but I had 3.5 really good years in Philly where I lit that place up. And I told you 2004, I should have won a Stanley Cup in 2004. That was the best team that I've ever been on, bar none, until Sharks in 2009. But when that cup went up, the emotions hit me, man. That's emotions just came over. I mean, I'd seen the people that I knew raise that cup, and I reacted to it. I got a lot of shit from Philly fans, yelling at me and this and that. And my response to them was, hey, I might have done the same thing if Philly won. It might have hit me the same way. But you know what? They didn't win. So you can't blame me. Don't blame me. I might have done the same thing for Philly. And if I did it, if I did the same reaction for Philly fans would have been off the chart, awesome, and towards me, and Chicago would have given me shit. So, I was just passionate. I always wore my heart in my sleeve for every time I played. And, when I see them win a cup, it's emotional because I don't have one, and I fought hard for many years to get one. I hit one NHL final in 21 years. That's scary to digest,
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think too. I mean, that was your third season too that you guys hit that, and then you guys just ran into that juggernaut that was the Pittsburgh Penguins that year. It was just
eight Hall of Famers on that team. They're now 8 Hall of Famers that were on that team. I mean, yeah, it's not a bad team to lose to, but still, knowing that we're up 4-1 in the first game and blew that lead, and every game was a 1-goal game. This kind of it's hard. It's no question.
So talking a little bit more about like your personality, like you were like one of the first players that like really showed personality out there. Like most hockey players, it's just dry cut, copy paste answers and all that. When you start showing this personality, I mean, how was it kind of like that? Like, how did other players around the league kind of like, react to that? Like, were they kind of like enjoying it too? Were they kind of giving you crap? Like, like knock it off?
It wasn't so much the players as it was the management and the coaches, right? The old school, I call them the dinosaur Neanderthal type thinking, right? One who is like, you're not above the team. Don't showboat. Don't alienate yourself from, just cookie cutter. You got a job, do this, walk straight forward, talk the talk, walk the walk, walk the line, say what we say. Kind of like the old school mentality that just not being over flamboyant, which means it's team first, it's not individual first. So anybody that does anything different individually, you are going against kind of the reputation of how the league was built and how it's been run for so long. And that's clean, squeaky clean, obey the laws, be respectful, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of pushed the envelope. There's no question. People want to see entertainment. They want to see people say things that are controversial. They want to see things that will cause a stir and get people start talking. And they're more inclined to watch when they're drawn to somebody. And I always tried to do that for the league. Listen, did the league get some negative press from me? Sure, no question. But they still read about it. People came and read about the NHL, even if I was negative. But I mean, my negative to positive reaction or influence on the league was so much more greater on the positive side. But unfortunately, people only remember or they exacerbate the negative.
Yeah, the more controversial is what sticks around more in people's minds, I think, too. But do you think like
well, media too? Media negative sells media, so media harps on that. So the media harps on the negative, and they show you in a negative light, and they show people that don't know you a side of you when they don't see the other side, and they don't show the other side. So, I will say, Curt Schilling said one of the coolest things I've ever heard when talking about why he's not in the Hall of Fame. And I think it pertains to me to a T, the same way as it does him, is that the media has created a Curt Schilling that does not exist, really doesn't exist. And the media has created a perception of me that does not exist. It really doesn't. And I think a lot of people that meet me in the course of a day, of a month, of a week, of a year. I was just in Las Vegas and met this super, super nice woman. She's turning 50 years old. She's a Flyers fan and came up to me and said hi. And another person that said something to me from Ottawa and another person from Colorado. And, they left, saying, wow, you're such a good guy. He's so good to meet you. Thanks for talking to me. Thanks this. And I'm like, well, of course, that's what you're supposed to do as a human being, respect, enjoy people. But the media, they're the media, a bunch of fucking assholes that just all they want to do is harp on the negative.
Yeah. I think that you tend to see that a lot too, just because like, that's what gets nowadays, at least too, is that's what gets clicks. And that's what gets like everybody's attention and gets like conversations going. It's like all the good news doesn't really get all that too.
It's also why our country is in shambles.
Yeah.
And that is 90% media's fault.
Yes, 100% agree on that. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit now to the game today. Like, what's your opinion of the game today versus like how it was when you were coming up? Like, do you think the game's better off now than it was, or?
It's totally different, man. It's a totally different league. Early 90s, it was cutthroat, hard hitting, in your face, consequential. You had to have accountability for the way that you played. You had to play hurt. You had to play tough, and it was a very difficult game to play. Nowadays, it's amazing talent, like talent beyond belief. Amazing coordination, agility. These guys they're the best conditioned and most coordinated athletes on the planet. And what they can do on skates is amazing to watch. Unfortunately, they're not the toughest. There are still tough guys in the league. There's still some guys that play old school but for the most part, they've kind of eliminated a lot of the fighting. I think the National Hockey League has really done its best to clean the game up in terms of the fighting aspect, in terms of its hard-nosed mentality. But it is for sure a weaker hearted game, and it is much more of a extremely talented game. And listen, it's fun to watch. I watch hockey I'm actually watching a game right now as I'm talking to you guys. I'm watching the Tampa and Edmonton. We have today's modern version of Wayne Gretzky playing in the National Hockey League right now, and Connor McDavid. The kid, without question, I don't care what anybody says to you in any aspect of the game, of the word, Connor McDavid is the most talented person ever to put on two blades and do what he does on two blades. Bar none, hands down. Now, will we see somebody better in the future? I find it hard to believe if you can get better on two blades. But You watch Wayne Gretzky play in the early '90s, late '80s. You see Wayne, Mark Messier, Mario Lemieux. It is a totally different level and style what Connor McDavid does on blades than what they did on blades. So Connor McDavid is doing almost the same thing that Mario and Gretz were doing back when goaltenders were fat, out of shape, and didn't want to go to the ice, right? with small equipment. Connor McDavid is doing the same thing to extremely talented players, extremely well fit and in shape, extremely strong, extremely fast, with goaltenders that are just as good athletes or in better shape, more athletic, more flexible, better mechanics with bigger equipment. I mean, it's pretty scary when you think about it. You put Connor McDavid in the game back in the late '80s, he has 350 points.
I would agree with that 100%. I was actually posing the question.
He's gonna have 3 points almost a game.
Yeah,
he's almost gonna have 3 points a game.
Well, I was posing the question in our group chat like yesterday. I was like, what do you think the chances are of Connor McDavid being one of the first players to hit 50 goals in 50 games at some point in his career in the next few years, probably, because he's at basically a goal a game at this moment.
In this generation, are there three or two players that have hit 50 goals in 50 games? I know of two. It might be three, but two for sure. And that's Gretzky and Cam Neely. But in this day and age, almost unheard of. But if you think about it, I mean, Austin Matthews probably could have done that without the lockout or without COVID. Yeah. I mean, he did score 61, 62 goals in 72 games last year. I think Austin Matthews has taken over as the best goal scorer in the National Hockey League. I think the best goal scorer I've ever seen is Alex Ovechkin, teamed with Brett Hull. I think those are the two best goal scorers I've ever seen. But to watch this game, it's fun, man. I don't know if you like watching games, but playoffs are amazing. I mean, I like the fighting and all that stuff. But I don't miss the fighting, but I like it, but I don't miss it.
Is there part of you that sees the fights that do happen usually have come up because of clean hits? Big.
It kind of bothers me. I've had this conversation with a lot of people. There's some people that are like, yeah, if you're a teammate and one of your teammates gets hurt or hit, then you have to respond and be a good teammate. But then again, that teammate should understand that it's called hockey and it's physical and there are going to be hits. And if you're going to go around and fight every person that has a good hit, then you'd be fighting all the time. Like sometimes it's the guy that gets hit. It's his fault he got hit. Right.
Right.
So,
or it's the person who passed the puck in a suicide pass situation.
Exactly. And so I am not a fan of let's go fight the guy who made a big hit. No, that's the game. That's why we play hockey. If you don't want to get hit, go play tennis or golf. Okay. But don't play this game. I understand being a good teammate and all, but I just, no,
you take their number and you get them back later on the game. That's all.
We say get his license plate, bud. Get that license plate. Yeah, get that license plate. Yeah, 100%.
Just thinking, like, if you were to translate the game that you had, and if you were to play today, like in your prime,
I get the same.
Do you think you would just get in fights all the time? Like people be just going after you?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't because there's no. Which I think the NHL did to get rid of fighting is they got rid of the instigator rule, right? I mean, if I played in today's game with the rules that they have today, I'd get suspended every week. I would get suspended every week because I hit to hurt. I hit to knock people out sometimes. I don't mind saying it because that was the mentality of the game back then. I went for the jugular. There's no question about it. And in today's game, you can't hit the way that I hit back in the 90s. I would get suspended every game. But if I hit like this now, I wouldn't fight because if you instigate a fight, you're you're suspended. You're going to get suspended. You're going to get kicked out of the game. Back in the 90s, I had to fight because if I hit Wayne Gretzky or I hit somebody of prominence, there's going to be a lineup of guys that are coming off the bench that are going to fight you. So you're going to play that way, then you're going to have to live up to it, and you're going to have to fight, and you have to be accountable for the way you play. There's people in the game today, not so much as of right now, but over the last 5 years, that they don't have to have any accountability for the way that they play. They run around, play like idiots. They do stupid things to just get their team going or be antagonists, and they do some cheap shots that they don't have to worry about. Connor McDavid just scored. He scored another one, 14 now.
There you go. There you go.
They don't have to have accountability for it. So, it's crazy. Yeah, Connor McDavid scored power play, 14 in the end.
He's insane.
Yep, he is insane.
I don't think anything's even fair when it comes to Connor McDavid and anybody on the power play. It's just impossible.
Well, it's Connor McDavid and Draisaitl.
Exactly. You have two of the top 5 players in the league on the same team playing in the same power play, and they constantly lead the league in points. You're screwed.
Well, I mean, you say 2 of the top 5. I mean, these two, if you look at it, they're 2 best as points go.
Yeah.
I mean, both of them, before last year, it was Draisaitl MVP. It was Connor McDavid MVP. Last year it was Matthews, obviously, but it wouldn't have been surprising if you saw Draisaitl or McDavid win the MVP last year, right?
Yeah.
But
do you think that it kind of hurts them too because they're on the same team when you're talking about MVP talk that goes into some people's minds as well?
A little bit. I think Draisaitl gets the worst of that.
Yeah.
Because they say, "Oh, Draisaitl's only there because McDavid." Well, that's not true because Draisaitl makes McDavid pretty damn good too, and they're both tremendous players. I think they have a problem in Edmonton is because you have a bench watching these two play all the time, and it's easy for them to get mesmerized by what they're doing and forget about that they have to fucking play the game too, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have 4 lines for a reason.
Yeah, and this Yamamoto kid, 0 goals. I mean, how does Yamamoto have 0 goals? I mean, you had Nugent Hopkins, who I think is a dud, but he had a big game the other day, and he's a Jekyll and Hyde player. After those players, who else? Kane has been a good addition, but he has to be because this is his last chance. Besides that, the rest of this team is a bunch of duds.
Yeah, I mean, I don't completely disagree or anything. That makes sense. Just talking about players kind of like McDavid and Draisaitl, I don't know if they would fit into this, but if you could play on a line with any 2 players in the NHL currently, who do you think you would want as your line mates? They can be on completely different teams too, but who would be your dream lineup right now with you playing on there too?
That's a good question. That's the first time somebody asked me that question. That's a great question. So for sure, Patrick Kane would be on my wing. That is for sure. So I'd have Patrick Kane on one side. I can't have McDavid because he's a centerman. So I'm taking the center spot. So I'm going to take Connor McDavid on one side. I'm going to take McKinnon on the other side, and I'm taking Hedman. Oh shoot, Edmonton. I'm taking Hedman and the stud kid in Colorado, Cale McCarr.
Cale McCarr. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I just talked about Evander Kane, and he just sliced his hand off of his wrist, so he's going to be done for a long time. So he's done.
Okay.
So he's gone. So he's done. Crazy. Yeah.
And I'm going to see that in about 5 minutes.
And I'm not kidding. He just got a skate on the wrist and is probably making sure he doesn't, lose too much blood in the locker room right now. It's terrible.
Jesus.
Yeah. See, you got to love watching hockey games when you're doing a podcast.
Yeah. I was going to put one on, but I was like, all right, I got to really focus right now.
Yeah, but now Edmonton's lost Evander Kane, who is their 3rd best player on the team. So that puts more emphasis on McDavid and Draisaitl to put up big numbers. So, I can see Edmonton going for a little dive over here for the next little while. So if you're a betting person, bet against the Oilers for the next little while.
All right. So you're talking now, you got you got a real job and all this kind of stuff now. So tell us a little bit now about what you're doing. You got your big part of the whiskey and the wild. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I got involved with the spirit world a few years back, and I kind of really got drawn into it because I love whiskey, I love tequila, I love good vodkas, and especially during COVID, there wasn't much more to do than to sit around and drink and get through a terrible situation. So we started creating a cool whiskey blend, because as you know, whiskey is the most popular alcohol right now going in the game. And sorry, boys, there's like a huge storm in my area right now. And by the way, I live in San Diego, and it's really one of only 2 storms that we get in San Diego throughout the course of the year.
I want to go to San Diego so bad.
Yeah, but it's but we're in that right now. And so I was just talking about how I got involved with whiskey. So I started creating this idea of building a whiskey company, and I don't want to do regular whiskey and have to learn how to distill it and do all the things that that you need to do. But I wanted to have something that I just want to have something that people really enjoyed. I know that the millennials, Gen Zs, they love blends, right? They love flavored spirits. They love different things about about whiskey. So I said, listen, let's do something that everybody loves. Let's do a chocolate whiskey. And as we're doing this chocolate whiskey, our team decided to add 2 SKUs. So we created for over 2.5 years, and we've created what I believe is the greatest blended spirit of whiskey that you will taste ever, and that's my chocolate whiskey. As you can see, I put a flask on the bottle. Dry side, I'll just scored. A flask on the bottle, because I wanted to do something really cool and unique, and we created a bottle that was completely artistic and a beautiful bottle. But we call it the Traveling Spirit, because I want people to take this whiskey anywhere that they went, be able to fill it up with a nice little spout on the top.
Oh, nice.
And take it camping, take it skiing, take it hiking, take it wherever they wanted to go. And we call it the Traveling Spirit, but it's whiskey in the wild. This is the chocolate version. I also have the other SKU, which is our chocolate orange, and obviously it's deciphered by the color of the band that holds the flask in place. And this has been an amazing run. We launched 4 months ago on LibDib. So if anybody wants this, you have to go online and go to whiskeyinthewild.com and order it online. But we're close to having a distributor in the States, and I'm hoping this is a huge hit. Actually, I'm doing a couple events tonight at a couple whiskey houses in San Diego, and it's been unbelievable. But what I did try to do, guys, I think this is really important with this whiskey. Everywhere I go, men love whiskey, women don't. That's just, you find that's pretty much the percentage. Not many women like it. And men like to drink with their wives. They like to drink with their significant other. They like to have that camaraderie with both men and female when you're sitting around smoking a cigar, or sitting in a bar or something like that, or sitting at home in front of a fireplace. So I wanted to try to bring the female drinker into the equation of liking whiskey. Well, we have created a spirit that I would say 98% of females that try my whiskey fall in love with it. So we kind of achieved our goal of bringing in the masses into liking whiskey. It is an amazing experience. It's an amazing drinking experience.
That's awesome. You guys have plans for a few different others, or is it just the 2 for right now?
Well, you got listen. You got to crawl before you run, right?
Right. Big dreams right now.
Yes, we have to make sure that we created something that people are going to love, that people are going to buy, and that people are going to rebuy. And I think we have done that so far in our first 4 months of being online sales. I mean, we have been told by our distributor that we've had the best launch of any blended spirit of any company that they've ever been associated with, which is gratifying because you can be great one day and then gone the next if you don't keep up with it. So we're very keen on making sure that we build the lifestyle, build the brand, and try to get as many places as we can. But we know we have a very unique product, but the liquor business is a tough world. It's a hard business. So we'll keep banging at it, but I'm drinking it right now, and I'm enjoying every second of it. Yeah.
I ordered both bottles, so they should be here sometime next week. So I'm really excited to.
Oh, you did? Oh, fantastic! I love it. Well, thanks for the order. Well, I would hope that you push it over this awesome podcast that you guys have, and when you do taste it, don't be afraid to have one in front of you and push it to the masses. Because I will tell you, whether you're a whiskey drinker or you're not, you will be extremely pleasantly surprised by the experience that you get. When I always say the bottle will make you buy it, the taste will make you buy it again. Right? The bottle's intriguing. The bottle will make you buy it. What's inside it will make you buy it again.
I'm excited.
So, yeah, it's pretty spectacular.
Do you still keep in touch with like Belfort and Chelios? Because I know you guys, all three of you guys, are kind of like in your own little, whiskey and tequila right now. Do you ever like say like, hey, we're kicking ass right now, kind of talk shit a little bit to them?
Yeah, so I talk to Chelly all the time. I actually text Chelly today. Chelly is my probably my biggest influence in my life, in my career. He's Captain America. He's the best captain I ever played for, and he's one of my greatest friends in the world. And I've never seen a more committed, passionate lover of the game than Chris Chelios. And I know he has a tequila, and he's doing very well with it with El Bandito. And I know Belfort Spirits is doing well. I talk to Eddie all the time about what he's doing. Eddie is a little different bird, though. Just like he played hockey. It's exactly how he does his business. He dives all in. He went to school to learn how to make whiskey. He makes whiskey. He distills whiskey. He's building a whole plant to make whiskey.
He's got the family all involved too.
Yeah, we had him on the show.
Dane. Yeah, Dane is on. Dane, his son, is an amazing guy. I love Dane. He's such a I love Dane. I've known Dane since he was born. He's passionate about it. It's a different kind of passion for Eddie in whiskey than I have. He wants to make the best whiskey for people to enjoy. I want people to enjoy whiskey so they can enjoy it with other people.
Yeah.
Right. And Eddie created one of the most beautiful bottles ever made, I think, in whiskey. So he's got that going for him. And I always told him, if he ever needs help with his whiskey, I'm in. But those are two of my favorite people in the world. So yeah, I do talk to them quite often, and we are friends, and we kind of talk about our trials and tribulations in the alcohol world. It's not fun, let me tell you.
Yeah.
All right. So you've been on us for almost an hour here. We really appreciate the time. Before we let you go, we always ask our guests one last question. What is your all-time favorite hockey memory, whether it be from you playing, you watching the game, anything like that? Do you have what would be your favorite memory?
So obviously you get a lot, right? I can't, it's hard for me to answer that because I have two different hockey lives. I have minor league hockey life, and I have NHL hockey life. And I was much more successful in the minor league hockey life in terms of championships than I was in my pro hockey life. I'll give you two. When I was a Bantam playing for New Jersey Rockets, we won 2 national championships The first one that we won in 5 overtimes in Buffalo against the Chicago Young Americans, the team that we had lost to all year. The only team we had lost to all year, ended up winning. And then we won the following year. So we won back-to-back national championships for the New Jersey Rockets. That was pretty awesome. But then playing in the 2002 Olympics for Team USA, playing against the Canadians in the gold medal game was probably one of the coolest things ever, because when you're growing up, it's a Canadian sport, and Canadians were the best at it. And us as Americans in the 80s, we couldn't compete with the Canadians. And in 2002, because of my generation, I say not me, I just say my generation, with the Amontes, Chelioses, Leaches, Leclercs, Medanos, Billy Guerins, Waits, Richters, Kachucks. I mean, I can go down the line. That generation spurred on today's U.S. generation, but we put USA on a world map. We were one of the best teams, if not the top 2 best teams on the planet. And I was a part of that. So that 2002 gold medal game in the Olympics, which is the #1 platform for sports, and we were on it. It was pretty awesome. Even though we lost, I was still there. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Well, Jeremy, we really appreciate you coming on. I can speak for Tanner for sure. Like, you are one of our all-time favorites.
I love it. That's so cool. That's
huge
so cool.
honor having you on here.
Well, sorry I didn't let you guys talk too much, but that's
no. Hey, we do this every week. It's fine. We talk enough.
I love it. Well, I appreciate you asking about the whiskey. That's the passion of mine right now, and appreciate you getting it, Zach, and everything is great. So we'll keep doing it, keep pushing it out there, and
we will.
And anytime you guys need me, you got it.
Awesome. Really appreciate it, Jeremy. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Cheers.
All right, take care, man.
Perfect.
Cheers.
Again, thank you so much again to Jeremy and the team over at Whiskey in the Wild for making this interview happen. Bucket list. I am so excited that I'm able to check this one off. So make sure you go ahead and order your bottle of Whiskey in the Wild today. Whiskeyinthewild.com. Follow them on social media, on Twitter at Whiskey Wild Co., Instagram Whiskey in the Wild Co., and like them on Facebook, Whiskey in the Wild Co. Again, thank you so much for the support over the 200 episodes of the WCB podcast. We will actually be back with a second episode on our normal Thursday, recapping the last week of Blackhawks hockey, previewing the week to come, and also talk about Blues coming to town, and hopefully the one time we really hope Blackhawks, kick the shit out of the team. But anyway, thanks again so much for everything, and we will see you again on Thursday.
Thanks for listening to the WCB podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast. To connect with Jarom and Tanner, check out the boys at WCB Podcast on all social media. We'll see you next time.